Young Kids fire Gold Coast to a shock win and Port Adelaide to their biggest showdown result. Carlton back to their old habits, and we dissect the vision that left Clarko livid. Hello and welcome to the round so far. But Kane Corns tonight, we begin at Metricon Stadium. The Suns snapping a 19-week losing streak off the back of their top two kids, Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson.
Yeah, no, I'm wrapped for them. What a performance it was. We didn't expect it, but it was an upset and it was one for the ages. As you said, Noah Anderson and also Matt Rowell, just outstanding. Let's start with Rowell because he had 26 disposals, 2 goals and 14 contested possessions. There's Anderson. We know he can do that. If you're going to draft picks 1 and 2, it's the perfect combination, isn't it? It's the perfect four because you get Rowell doing the inside grunt work, you get Anderson on the outside, but for Rowell to be able to do that and push forward and hit the scoreboard will take his game to the next level.
They were absolutely insipid in round one. That game against Port Adelaide was probably the worst result of the weekend. How important is this now? They're back after the break, 82 days since their last game, and they deliver this.
Yeah, it just gives you some belief, doesn't it? And they don't have the travel challenges that they've had in the past, and they weren't the only two. There was a terrific performance. I thought the way that they matched the Eagles midfield, who I still think are the best in the competition, you got Nick Nat, you got Yo, Kelly now, Shuey and Gaff. Well, they completely beat them up inside there. The young kids beat them at contested. They score 5 goals, 3 to 3 goals from stoppages tonight. So that's where the game was won, and that's a big confidence boost for a young midfield to go up against the best.
A dirty night for the Eagles. They only kicked 1 goal after half-time. The Suns kicked 8 overall, and this one is probably sums up a bit of the night. You see Jeremy McGovern get absolutely flattened by Alex Sexton. Now, Sexton's number was taken by the umpire for this incident. You'd think given insufficient force, he would get off. The Suns held their own in a bit of a scrimmage, but McGovern retaliates about 90 seconds later.
Good to see a bit of feeling. There hasn't been much of that across the first 2 rounds of the season. I didn't think there certainly was. Look, you got to be careful doing that type of thing. That's just a silly action from McGovern. I think he'll be okay because Sexton wasn't injured, and we know the tribunal and the match review officer will take that into account. But it's stupid. It shows his frustration. He had a poor night, McGovern, tonight as well, which he has been prone to do. I think his poor games are becoming more and more common. And look, he's a great player. We know that. I think West Coast will bounce back, but the next 3 weeks will be difficult. I'm not too worried about them. I'm not going to overreact off one loss, but it was a really disappointing night for them.
McGovern does have form. He got a week last year for pushing Matt Guelphy from Essendon into a fence. Now, just one more piece of vision from this game. This, for me, sums up the night. Lewis Jetta biting probably a bit more off than he can chew with this kick. Nick Coleman absolutely flattening Luke Shuey, the skipper there.
And then the play that eventuates from this, just the work rate of the Suns and the lack of defensive running from the Eagles and their midfield. Like, this is what we've seen teams do to the Gold Coast for the last 2 years. Now, they flipped the script and they've done this to the West Coast. You're going to see McPherson bob up for an easy, uncontested mark inside 50. That's not the West Coast Eagles that we know. It's not good enough to defend like that. And that clip, basically, the physicality and then the run and the spread and the work rate summed up the night.
It's going to be a long 3 weeks for the Eagles if they don't get on top of it. Every time they've spoken since they've been at the hub, they've been talking about when they can get out. They're there for another 3 weeks. They've got Port Adelaide, Brisbane and Richmond to come across their next 3 weeks. So it's a pretty nasty 3 weeks if they don't sort that out. Anyway, we'll move on to the Adelaide Oval next. 75-point wins. You loved every bit of this tonight. The Power beating the Crows, and the young kids did the job for the Power.
Yeah, I thought they were just terrific. We've spoken so much about Rosie Dersma and Butters. I just think the move of Rosie into the midfield this year, his previous best prior to tonight was 2 clearances. Well, he had 8 clearances tonight. He's always been able to do that, push forward and kick a goal. He was their leading goal scorer last year. There's Butters. And you'll see Dersma bob up and kick 3 goals tonight as well. He's been a goal kicker right throughout his whole career already. But they just smashed Adelaide at the stoppages. They won it on the inside. There they hold their width. They hold their position on the outside, and they really did make Adelaide look silly tonight. They were hapless, the Crows. Perhaps, in their 29-year history, this could be their lowest ebb. They've always been a pretty proud club who have never bottomed out and never won a wooden spoon. Well, without overreacting too much to 2 losses, the scenes tonight at the Adelaide Oval were pretty damning for a young Crow side who had such a high turnover of not only staff but also players in one season.
It is pretty damning, and you're not going to take that lightly, what you've just said there about the Crows. Talk about those young kids there compared to the Crows' young kids. They're streets ahead of what we're going to see from the Crows in the coming years.
I just don't see any excitement and the next young superstar at Adelaide. Galucci was a first-round draft pick. He couldn't even make the squad of 26 for the showdown. Chase Jones is another first-round draft pick. I haven't seen anything from Chase Jones that says to me that he's going to be a player at the level just yet, early days. Mackessy's probably going to be a good player, but once again, he's a key position type who didn't have an influence tonight. It's going to take him some time to develop his body. But who is the next young star at the Crows? Besides the Crouch brothers and Sloan, they're all mid-20s now. Who's the next one? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Crows, they were smashed out of the stoppages in round 1 against Sydney, and it probably got worse tonight if you look at the scores from stoppages that the Power were able to deliver.
Yeah, they scored 8 goals to 0, Port Adelaide, from stoppages, and they didn't address their ruck issue in the off-season. So Sam Jacobs leaves, and you let Riley O'Brien be the sole ruckman. So you see there, Darcy Fogarty forced to do the ruck work. Darcy Fogarty, the first centre-bounce he's ever taken in his career. This is the result. Port Adelaide have their way. They score a centre-bounce goal. That's it. We saw Taylor Walker have to go into the ruck tonight. He had no influence and was absolutely monstered when he was in the ruck. So when Riley O'Brien's not there, who else is there? They traded for Billy Frampton. They've got Himmelberg on the list, but they're not confident in them playing. So Motlop's screamer there. I thought he was terrific tonight. And this is the one where Tex would be embarrassed watching that back. There's lack of physicality, which has sort of hurt him the last couple of years, and Dixon kicked his third there for the night. So issues all over the park for Matthew Nix in only his second game.
And Travis Boak winning the showdown medal tonight. Now, there were 2,240 people there to watch the action. You enjoyed this, the little fan. They misspelled Eddie's name, but the message is loud and clear on that.
They might have done that deliberately. It was just great to hear some noise, some actual authentic crowd noise. And whilst there's only 2,000 there, they certainly made their impact felt. You could hear it come through the broadcast tonight. Thought the prison bars looked magnificent, and I think that's probably a wake-up call for the AFL, just to give us a ruling on the prison bars. Let Port Adelaide wear it in at least their home showdown, perhaps even 2 showdowns a year, and move on, make a ruling on that. It was a great night. It was a good symbolisation for Port Adelaide's 150th year tonight, and they should celebrate.
All right, to Marvel Stadium next. Crazy finish, really. Melbourne led by 42 points early in the second quarter, and they basically imploded from there. If you look at this finish here, Carlton came late. Eddie Betts kicking this goal. Paddy Cripps put the Blues within a kick after this. And really, after all the work that Carlton did, they really probably should have won the game.
No, absolutely, they should have won. We'll see a couple of examples of that in a moment. But Cripps missed one just prior to that. He backed himself in to kick that one. This one, Jack Martin, the new recruit, this is to put clearly Carlton 5 points up. It just slides to the right and hits the post. And then they go up the other end. Fritsch didn't have his radar on either. He's a class player who I really like and had a lot of shots at goal 5. In fact, kicked 1 goal 4 and couldn't finish it. And then these 2 from Sam Walsh. Now, the number 1 draft pick just had to be better. That's just a poor option. You could see there he had Casbolt leading up. Wrong option there, and he had one moments prior to that. So He was wasteful, I thought, Sam Walsh tonight. And yes, he gets a lot of the footy, but the impact that he actually has on games, I think, if you look at his disposals, is minimal. I know it's early in his career, but he's got to really work at carrying the footy and having an impact with his metres gained, because at the moment it's a lot of short handball and doesn't get value for his possessions.
And 3 goals, 7 on the night for Carlton, so they've really missed their chances in front of goal. Now, you wanted to highlight this piece of vision. Early in the game, Max Gawn, ball at half forward.
Well, don't give me fatigue. Start of the game. Look at that. I can circle 5 Carlton players. This defence is as poor as you are going to see. Now, if you want to talk what cost them the game, the first quarter cost them the game and efforts like that. Tell me how Neil Bullen marks that footy in and amongst 5 or 6 Carlton players who didn't want the responsibility to go over, stand next to a man and defend the ball, because they were too lazy and they weren't switched on early in the game. So they start poorly against Richmond in round 1. David Teague says, well, look, I'm happy with the fight back. They start shockingly in round 2 against Melbourne. They're 5 goals down at quarter time. That's why, and that's what cost them the game.
All right, Groundhog Day, Kane. 12 weeks ago, we were in a bigger studio, but Carlton, they let it slip against Richmond in the first quarter alone. This is a trend now. If you look at their history since the start of last season, then their first quarters have really let them down. They've lost 16 quarters and won just 7 of their first quarters, but combine the rest, and they've actually won more in that time.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Do you look at it glass half full and you think, well, the run's there, Andrew Russell's our new fitness boss, he's got us going in the second halves, and that's great. But I'd be looking at the other way. What is going on in the first quarter where you are costing yourselves big time in first quarters, and basically it's just hard work. It's hard work for them to get back into every single game, and that was the issue for them tonight. Clearly it was the issue for them round one, and it has been, as you're highlighting, for the last season. So they've got to do something about their starts.
And Bennell, good tonight for Melbourne. 14 touches played on minimal game time. Petrarca probably best on ground. Unfortunate news for the Blues as well. Nick Newman, a patella tendon injury to his knee. Now next to the Gabba, another game similar to the one at Marvel Stadium. The Lions probably should have had this one iced earlier in the game, but Fremantle pushed hard through Nat Fyfe and Michael Walters. So much rest on their shoulders, and this put the Dockers within 4 points with 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, well, like round one, they came storming home against Essendon. They just fell a goal short. And then today against Brisbane, just a couple of goals short. There's the big O. He just missed everything there. So the Lions had their opportunities. There's the debutant, Tom Berry, who misses a pretty straightforward one directly in front from 20 metres out. So they had their opportunities before Zorko, eventually at the stoppage here, he's made a living out of this, the 4-time best and fairest winner, just waltzes through and kicks a goal there to seal the game. But yeah, Fremantle, look, they're admirable. They're not going to win many games. They'll upset some teams this year, but far too much just rests on Fyfe and Walters. The help or lack of help that they have is stark, and I noticed that today. But Brisbane are exciting to watch. I think they'll get better the longer they keep playing this year. They're going to be really hard to beat. Their draw is favourable, and they have stars, young stars, and speed across every line.
Fremantle, good news. Jesse Hogan got through the scratch match, the reserves game today earlier in the day with 2 goals, but Sean Darcy headed for scans after a worrying knee injury. Now, we could have had Matt Rowell, Connor Rozee, Christian Petrarca as our Saturday star, but we couldn't look past this man. Charlie Cameron kicked 4 goals in the first half alone, and had it on his own terms, Kane.
He did. So the best 2 small forwards in the game were playing in this game here. That's Walters and this man, Cameron. I just I marvel at his improvement from the time he came across from Adelaide, who he was a inconsistent small forward. He's now just a genuinely consistent small forward. He's an All-Australian. He's a leading goal scorer last year, and he just doesn't need any time or space to get open and work his magic and kick goals. So he was absolutely on fire. He kicked those 4 first half goals, as you said. Didn't hit the scoreboard after. Thought Griffin Logue actually went on to him and did a really good job from Fremantle. So well done to the youngster from Freo. But Charlie Cameron, Walters or Cameron?
Yeah, I was going to ask. That was my next question.
I'd probably just go Cameron.
All right, I'm going to go Walters for that ability to go into the midfield. Now, back to Friday night, down in Geelong. Alistair Clarkson was furious after the game, and largely in part due to the Geelong half-forwards. Ryan Myers, Gary Rowan was quiet, but Tom Atkins, Gary Ablett, they were far too good for the Hawks.
They wanted it more. They out-crumbed them in the forward line. The ground ball differential, we're seeing it here. I mean, Ablett's ability to finish, and you call that a finish, that weighted kick, that's the kick of 2020 so far. There hasn't been a big sample size, but that was an unbelievable kick. Ryan Myers was in everything. And their small forwards, Dowhouse, one contested ground ball gets inside their forward 50. And you'd have to think that Hawthorn went far too tall in their defence. When you've got Frost, McAvoy, you've got Stratton back there.
Too slow as well.
Too tall, too slow. And clearly this vision here, as it plays out, we had to fast.
Started with Narkle there.
It started with Narkle on the wing there, and he's the one that ends up bobbing up and catching it there. So the work rate would just please Chris Scott no end, and that was the difference, because they didn't really get a contribution from Hawkins or Radaglia as their tall forwards. It was the smalls that did the damage, as we've just shown. And
at the start of the year, Joel Sell put it on those middle tier guys, Parfitt, Narkle, Menegola, and they were the ones that really stood up.
He wasn't bad either, Joel.
He was good. Different role this year, back inside. You like that?
Well, what he was doing playing outside on a wing was a mystery to me at the time, and I think he just proved the point to his coach. I'm an inside midfielder. Let me play there until I can't walk, and I'll have to retire.
They might get Jack Stephen back next week as well. Now, you mentioned the slow defence, the tall defence. What about at the other end? This sort of pricked your interest here. John Patton had no influence on the night.
No, he didn't, and you don't want to overreact to a couple of games. I understand he's coming back from a 3 ACL and he's trying to fit into a new system, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity. So factor all that in. I'm more worried about the way that he's moving. I mean, he's had a lot of time off. He's been right for a long time, probably 8-9 months he's been ready to play. He just doesn't look like he's got the attributes to be a successful key forward in the game. The best ones now are the ones that can move sideways. They've also got a bit of speed, or they've got one weapon, either really big endurance base like a Nick Revolt, Matthew Richardson, or they've got genuine speed and craft like a Ben Brown. What tricks and what attributes does John Patton have to get off his opponent and actually hit the scoreboard when you've got crowded defences like that and you are outmarked? So if he's not one-on-one wrestling, What's the other weapon that he's got? I don't see one at the moment. So, yeah, I do have grave concerns whether it will be a success at Hawthorn for Patton.
All right, he might be lucky to be playing with Sean Burgoyne next week against Richmond. Do you escape with a fine for this? What do you make of it?
Saw it and I thought 1 week, straight away. I saw that, and regardless, Paddy, put a bit of mayonnaise on it like he tends to do, but he got back up, so that was lucky for Sean. But I saw that action, and I thought the AFL wanted to stamp that out. So as much as I love Sean, I thought he was lucky to get off with that.
And very lucky that Dangerfield got up and played out the game, really. Now back to Thursday night. Only 10 goals on the night. They couldn't split them. This is one has got everyone talking. Jack Higgins, third quarter, dying stages. The umpire here, Kane, actually called it a point. They went to the review and it was overturned.
Well, that's the point. If the umpire, look at them right there. You couldn't get the two of them in a better position. If they think it's a point, there has to be overwhelming evidence to say, no, it's a mark. And on that, the umpire's call on the ground is spot on. That is a point. That is a behind. They're right there. So how the score reviewer overturned it, how Gillon McLachlan can come out on 3AW and say that was a brave yet the right call is completely wrong. There was no conclusive evidence for them to overturn that. And you could argue it cost Collingwood the 4 points.
Well, this could have definitely cost Collingwood the 4 points. That's been spoken about. But have a look at the time on the clock here. 6 minutes ago, this is a three-time Coleman medalist from 45 metres out, not making the distance. They would have iced the game.
Yeah, I don't understand that. It was a rotten night for Jack Riewoldt. I thought it was one of the poorer games that I've ever seen him play, and had the opportunity to win it for them, and doesn't make the distance from 35 metres out. So I can't explain it.
All right, to the rest of the round now. Essendon and North Melbourne, they're sharing the same flight tomorrow up to Sydney. What do you like out of these games tomorrow?
Well, I think Essendon, I think they'll be good enough to beat Sydney. Saw them in round one. They were reasonably impressive, yet, although what do you take out of Adelaide's form? And the other game, I think the Giants, I really like the Giants and what they can do. Great news story is Callan Ward back in as well after that 12-month ACL injury.
And a big game for St Kilda and the Dogs. Both teams zipping one heading in to this week. Let's see how it pans out after this, because the loser might cop a bit of heat in the next week or so. Now to Kane, one more thing. We love this. Max Gawn, first game as Melbourne captain. Done all the hard work. You just showed a great clip from him doing it before. Doesn't even get the chance to celebrate with the team.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. Your first win as skipper, and they don't wait for you to sing the song. So poor old Maxie must have been doing some TV interviews or the like on the ground, and his teammates just went off early without him. They were that relieved to get the win. They started singing without him. It's a bit rough.
Oh, a bit rough.
Yeah.
Just finally, what do you make of these COVID infringements? We've had 4 players rubbed out. We're going to see this framework. We heard about the reckless, the careless. Any chance of us seeing that? Because I think the players are at a loss as to what they can actually do.
Yeah, firstly, the players were reasonably silly. With first week back, I think you had to be extra cautious. So, most of the responsibility is on the players. But I'd just love to see the easing of restrictions in line with the rest of society.
All right, thanks for that, Cam. Also, great to see the movement around Black Lives Matters across this weekend. 3 more.
And good to see Xavier Dersma back with the bow and arrow.
All right, we'll see you same time, same place here on the Round So Far next week.